Welcome to Security Heroes, a podcast by Athena Security. We share real-life stories to help connect you to real heroes in the security world. I am your host, Lisa Falzone. Warning, the following recording contains potentially disturbing content. Listener discretion advised. All right, so we've got a very exciting show for you today because we are here with the University of Mississippi's Medical Center's Behavioral Response Team. Joining us are Sergeant Hiley, Officer Lee, Officer Mays, and Officer Ford Jr. Together under the aegis of UMMC's Police and Public Safety's Department, these four serve as the behavioral responsible for de-escalating potentially violent events on the UMMC campus. The program started 2 years ago with then Sergeant Hiley, who already had a quarter of a century of police work under his belt, and Officer Lee, who has served in the Air Force, National Guard, and even as a firefighter. The two of them handled over 100 calls in the first month alone, and demand for the continuation and expansion of the program was so great that Officer Mays and Ford were brought on as well to bolster the team. I thank all four of you for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
All right, so let's start with Sergeant Hiley and Officer Lee. What was it like starting the first program of this kind in the state?
For me, we didn't know what we were doing. To be honest, we were told, go out here and make it work and just try to make sure that we're de-escalating situations. So I think for the first week, me and Lee were just trying to figure it out. How do we approach people, even though we were in plain clothes, which would kind of set the pace for things, because most of the time people see officers in uniform and they get defensive. So the soft clothes look kind of helped. And then we started the first thing we would do was say, hey, tell us about your day. What's going on? What is it we can help you with? So it was just a quest to try to figure out how to get people to talk to you. As you know, most of the time people don't want to talk. I don't know, Lee, how did you feel about it?
I definitely felt thrown into it. Now, granted, I did have to give my permission to say I would play along with the team. But initially it was a shock, not really knowing what you were getting into. There weren't many guidelines. I mean, besides your normal policing, I think, again, a lot of common sense and just normal empathy played a part into how things would go, just speaking to people as you would with care and concern. I mean, of course, being at a hospital campus, nobody's here to just hang out and have fun. So, of course, you come in and you have to give that level of respect. You have to understand why a patient or a visitor is here. And like I said, over that week or week and a half or so, just kind of getting a feel for everything. It's like, okay, well, I can do this. But even at that time, you never really knew the impact you were having at the moment, until you take a step back and look. But it turned out great. It turned out great. One of those things that I was nervous to step into turned out to, be able to thrive through and kind of became a big deal with it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Congrats. Well, opening the floor to all of you, was it a big shift going from more typical police work to this behavioral response team?
Yes, I would say it was, because now we're interacting with many people and along with children. So just getting in the swing of things, normally, when you get a call, you go to handle the call, you go handle it and you're on to the next call. Being with the behavior response team, it was more of, okay, now we have time. We have time to sit down and talk to people. We have time to listen to what's going on, and we have time to try to fix the problem. And then we had more communication with our nursing staff. So our daily rounds would be to check the floors and speak to nurses, say, hey, how's everything going? You got any patients that we might need to sit down and talk to, or how's your day going? Because sometimes our nursing staffs would be having a bad day. So we started intermingling with our staff more. And so, being a street officer, you don't have time for that. So it made it more personal now. It made it that we're all interacting with everybody now, and to include the doctors as well. They started knowing who we were first name basis, and we're glad to see us. So for me, I would say, yeah, it impacted differently compared to what you would be doing on street patrol.
I can say, so it's almost 10 years here at UMMC for myself. Those first 7.5, 8 years, you feel like you do great work, but stepping into the role of a behavior response officer, it definitely opened doors. Again, you are now communicating with many departments that maybe you didn't, previously. So now you can really see the wider scope of things and how interacting with different agencies within the hospital here play the part in exactly what you do and how your visitors and patients receive the help that they need.
So what's your number one tip for successful de-escalation?
I would say the first thing is being a good listener. You have to be, and also with communicating. Communication skills is a must. Sometimes it's a give and take situation, but listening to actually what the patient is telling you to address the concerns of whatever they have. You need to address the concerns and also be able to tell them, form their relationship with them. So if they have to return, first thing they want to do is going to ask for you to come back and talk to them because now they have a relationship with you.
Right.
What would you say, Mays?
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, Mays, what would you say?
I would say basically the same thing, and also keeping a calm demeanor about it. You have to meet a person where they're at when it comes to de-escalation. Not every situation is calm when you get into it. So you meet them where they at and try to remain calm while you're dealing with them.
Yeah. Officer Mays, I know you've helped train nursing students in de-escalation. Anything else to add about specifically like nurses?
That's one of my tips to the nurses too, is trying to remain calm under pressure, but also I kind of teach when you enter a room, scan that room for potential items that can be harmful to you. And always stay close to an exit.
Yeah. I know in the program you dress in plain clothes to avoid making people defensive. How else do you build rapport with aggressive individuals?
Well, I would say most of the time when you enter the room, you introduce who you are. And once you get into the room and you can figure out if that person is a threat or not, the next thing we want to know is, can I have a seat? Because if I'm standing over you, it's like intimidating you if I'm standing over you. If I could sit down and look at you eye to eye, now you see you have my attention.
Yeah. Roughly how many calls do you respond to on an average day, and how many would you consider serious?
I would say on an average day, anywhere from 5 to 10 calls. And out of that 5 to 10, if it's 10, I would say on the average, maybe 4 might be extremely serious calls, because as they said before, sometimes when you meet a person where they're at and we see that we can't de-escalate them, then we have to take it to that next level, because we all want everybody to be safe. So we want the patient safe and we want our staff safe as well.
Right.
And if it's that time that we can't de-escalate, the next thing is, okay, this patient is potentially going to harm themselves or others. So now we have to move to the next level, which could be restraints, seclude, possibly arrest, just depending on what the situation might be.
Right. That's a lot
of
serious calls every day. So obviously you all hope that most situations can be resolved peacefully, but have you had situations where the individual refused to cooperate and became a danger?
Absolutely. All the time. And I think that's where it leads to, we're still police officers, so we have a job now. And whether that job is to place that patient in restraints or seclusion or possibly arrest. And we tell them, we're very upfront and transparent about what we're getting ready to do. And we tell them, look, okay, now you have 2 options. You can do A or you can do B. This is how it's going to go. There's no more discussing. This is what it is right now. And so we do what we have to do after that. And even afterwards, we still go back and check on that patient. If they make a arrested, then, yeah, we'll see them in court. But if they've been placed in seclusion or restraints, we still follow up. We go back and check on them and say, hey, we apologize for what happened yesterday, but how are you today? Are you in a better space today? Is there anything we can help you with today? We want to let them know that even though we have to take that next step, those next measures,
right,
that we're still there for them.
Yeah. Can you talk about any specific heroic stories where either yourself or member of your team saved someone's lives?
I'm not going to say I saved somebody's life, but we had a situation in the Weiser where young couple lost a baby. Mom, dad, both pretty heated. I was able to go into the room and actually talk to them. I was actually on my knees talking to them and just sympathizing with them. And sometimes things like that, you have to do whatever you can to take their mind off of what's going on and try to give them every option you can. Even I offered to get a priest, offered to get a chaplain. I offered to get anything I could within my power to make them feel secure and also let them know that it was somebody here for them that can help them at any way and any time we can. So that was one of my biggest things was, like I said, getting on one knee and talking to the family. And actually everything went all right. They both stayed in there with each other. We had no more problems with them. I checked on them to the time that they were released. And last time I talked to them, they was doing good.
That's awesome.
So I can say, I can't pinpoint actual events, but I can say there have been countless times to where we encounter patients who want to do bodily harm to themselves. And I think we've all just about been in a situation where we had to sit on the floor of a seclusion room and speak with someone and kind of just give them the hope that maybe they need, because, we deal with a lot of patients who vary in ages. They may lack support from family members, whether it be mom and dad or, the spouse or whatever the situation may be, to where they feel like they no longer have anything else left. So, you find that love that they do have at some point, and you try to, refer to it and remind them, hey, look, this is a tough time, but we can get through this. Things can be better. Let's not just give up here. We don't know what tomorrow holds. You don't know what next month or next year brings for you. And, in certain situations, I'll say, I can't think of a situation where we've heard of a patient that has possibly, went forward with harming themselves. But we do try to give a lot of hope. Again, that goes back to us just rounding on them, checking on them again to make sure, hey, is this moment better for you? What small gesture can I give you that you may lack that may change this whole situation for you? People come in, they're up on 10 and they think we go in and work magic, bring these down to 1 or 2, but it's just simply having somebody to talk to, somebody that's not judging you. Between the four of us, we have a background and a little bit of everything to where we can say, well, kind of been through this, so hey, if I need to call this partner in, they can relate to this a little bit more than I can. And, once you have that person that can relate, it tends to take the edge off of things a little bit.
Right.
So, now granted, you do have patients that will use you and abuse you if you allow them to, and they'll call you every 10 minutes, but it works. We don't have to worry about staff members being harmed or cursed out anymore, sworn at, and everything like that. So if it takes me 5 minutes to come and speak to you, or 10 or 20 minutes to keep the shift safe, sure, I'll come. I'll bring chips if you can have them. Little stuff like that. It's little stuff like that. Combs, brushes, things like that change the whole scenario.
Totally. Any other heroic scenarios that you guys want to talk about?
I've had one where a patient had been here for a month and a half. We had never got a call on this patient, but this particular day, nursing staff called, code white on him. So I get over there and I can literally hear him in his room. He was cussing. And so, I was like, tell me what's going on with him. She was like, I don't know. He was fine one moment. Dietary came in, brought his tray, and he threw his food and he was cussing and he's destroyed his room. So I was like, okay. I go to the room and I knock on the door and I push the door open. Of course, the room is in shambles and he's laying in his bed and he's just irate and cussing. And so I introduced myself and I was like, can I come in? And he was like, why do you want to come in? And I was like, well, I just want to talk to you. Tell me what's going on with you today. And so I came in and I'm looking at his room. I'm looking at his garbage can is overflowing. So I'm noticed that means to me, your garbage hadn't been emptied in a while. Of course, food is all over the floor and on the walls. So I told him, I said, well, what happened today to get you this upset? Can you explain that to me? He said, yes. Dietary came in with my tray and it was going to place it on my table. And I asked him not to because my urinal was sitting on the table and it was full of urine. So I asked her, don't sit it here, just sit it over by the sink and I'll get it. And she told him, no, this is where your tray is supposed to go. And she set it next to his urinal. And he said, let me ask you a question. Would you eat food that's sitting next to a urinal that's full of urine? And I told him, no, I wouldn't. He said, even when I asked her not to, she said it there anyway. And I understood. And he was like, I just didn't know what else to do. He said, so I just, became enraged. And so I told him, I said, I tell you what, I'm going to get your room clean. I'm going to get you a new tray. I'm going to get your garbage taken care of. He was like, they hadn't been in here. My floor ain't been mopped since I've been here. Just telling me everything. I stepped out in the hall. I called the nurse. I said, hey, I need a new food tray and I need housekeeping up here right now. I stayed with him until they came and cleaned the room. They bought him a new tray. And so I asked him, I said, you want me to stay with you for a while? And he was like, yeah, because I don't get any visitors. My family hasn't came to visit me. And I sat there and talked with him for, I know, at least about an hour and a half, 2 hours. And he thanked me. He was like, I really appreciate everything you've done for me. And I apologize to the nursing staff. I wasn't directing it at them. He said, I was just angry because she set my tray, my food next to this urinal.
Right.
And so after that day, I would come and visit him every day until he was discharged. And we would sit and watch football, basketball. We would just talk. And he was so appreciative. And he even thanked me the day he got discharged. He thanked me for being there. He was like, I really appreciate you being there for me. And so stories like that kind of stick with you. We've had stories with children. I actually have a child that is reaching out to me. I gave him one of my bracelets and he talks to me every month. Just to let me know how he's doing. I told him, I said, hey, when you get ready to graduate, let me know and I'll come to your graduation. So it's just that we're helping and that they remember that we helped them.
Yeah, it kind of their worst moments, That's awesome for sharing. Officer Mays, do you have any heroic stories you wanted to share?
So the one comes to mind, we were dealing with a younger patient, acted out every night, really didn't know why I would act out, telling the staff, call the police. I want them over here. Call them. I'm not scared of them. And come to find out when I would show up, it was so simple. First, he was scared of the dark. And secondly, he wanted to be tucked in every night before bed. And once I got to that level and understood what he needed, for long as he was here, every night before I left, I would go over, tuck him in, and would ask the staff if they could just keep one of the dimmer lights on next to his room, so he wouldn't be scared. And that changed his behavior. And still, I did it every night, and he stopped acting out because he knew I was gonna come. Long as he was here.
Oh, I was just thinking really touching stories. Thanks for sharing. Any kind of switching gears a little bit, like any new technology or past technology that has helped you guys in saving people's lives?
We've gone to a lot of classes, and the sad part is that there's not a lot of mental health classes out there for us. So the ones that we go to, it's almost like we're going to these classes, but we're already doing what we've been taught. And I wish that there was more classes dealing with mental health because it's more prevalent now. I think that COVID really took a lot of things for people. And so it's more prevalent. And I feel like even street patrol need more because they don't have the time or the opportunity to sit down with people to discuss their issue. But if you can see the key signs of a mental health patient or what is escalating them, I feel like that would improve our law enforcement community. Because they're running into it every day. You pull up something, you're looking at a mental ill patient, suicide by cop, and then you find out later that he had some mental health issues. And there's, I feel like when I went through the academy, we had community policing. So you had that one officer that he could tell you about this one block. He knew everybody on that block. He knew what type of situations they were having. And I feel like sometimes that we need to get back to that, whether you work in a hospital facility or on street patrol. Know your people, because there could be situations that you could handle a different way if you know your people. And I think that, that would help our law enforcement community, because so many things are going on now.
Yeah, everyone talks about just how just society in general has really suffered a lot of mental health issues, thereby increasing violence, post-COVID. It's kind of like there's a pre-COVID insecurity and a post-COVID insecurity, kind of like the pre-9/11 insecurity, post-9/11. So kind of interesting. But yeah, no, I agree. I think mental health is super important going forward. So I mean, in closing, what's the biggest thing other hospitals starting a program like this need to know?
I think the biggest thing is make sure, if you want to start a behavior response team, make sure you're picking the right people for it. Because everybody can't do what we do. I'm so thankful that I had the opportunity and had my hand in choosing Officer Ford and Officer Mays, because it wasn't just like, hey, I want those two. I actually watched them. I watched how they handle patients. I watched how they talk to people. And I think that's the most important thing, because you got to get somebody who wants to sit down and listen, who's going to show empathy, who's going to be transparent, but also be able to uphold the law when it needs to happen. And so I think, being able to pick those right officers for your team is the best thing ever. Making sure that your command staff stands behind you and they help you. Get to know the people that you're working with, your doctors, your nurses, because they play a big part. Your social workers, they play a big part in helping you out with something like that. So to me, I think those are the most important things.
Awesome. Any other closing comments or remarks?
And also, I just think they just need to, when you're starting a behavior response team, just realize that you're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
If you make that decision, you just go with the decision. Just make sure you're not violating anybody's rights and you're doing the right thing, because you feel like that's the right thing to do for the time being. You're going to make this, and also you're going to have compassion and be able to just sit there and be that. With our job, you're going to have time to be able to sit there and be able to listen. You got to learn how to listen instead of just coming in barking orders. Listening is a whole lot. We have to do a lot of listening more than anything.
Yeah.
Honest with them. Do not lie to them. When you have a problem, be honest with them. And if you can't do it, it's all right for me to say, hey, Mays, let Mays try it. Because it might be Mays' day that day. So, yeah, you just have to be a team player and understand what's really going on.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. Really appreciate your comments, tips, heroic stories. Really loved having you guys on the podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Awesome. We'll talk soon and we'll be in touch.
Okay.
Right,
thank you.
Stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Security Heroes is brought to you by Athena Security. To find out more about Athena Security and how we help save lives through our weapon detection solution, visit www.athena-security.com. And then make sure to search for Security Heroes in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes.